Climbing mountains is thrilling, but it can also be dangerous. Many climbers end up involved in unexpected accidents during their adventures, ranging from falls to natural disasters. And that is exactly what you're going to see here today. So go ahead and hit the like button, click below to subscribe, and let's get started. Heather Friesen, 26 years old at the time, was enjoying a hike in Hawaii in 2016 when a moment that seemed ordinary turned into something scary. She was walking near a waterfall, taking in the view, but the ground was way more slippery than she had imagined. In a matter of seconds, Heather lost her balance, and the fall was inevitable. The most impressive part is that everything was recorded by the GoPro she was wearing at the time. In the footage, you can see how fast it all happened. She fell from a height of 15 meters and upon hitting the ground, was injured and struggling to breathe, which only made the situation more desperate.
Fall was caught on her GoPro.
Even so, Heather managed to gather the strength to slowly get back on her feet. Her friend, who was on the trail with her, can make the trek even riskier. Realize how serious the accident was. Fortunately, she was rescued in time and lived to tell this incredible story. Although the accident happened in 2016, the video of the fall was only released years later. The images show how nature, as beautiful as it is, can be unpredictable and dangerous. It's an important reminder for anyone who likes to explore trails and waterfalls. You can never be too careful. Mountaineers know very well that any mistake during a climb can have fatal consequences. That was the case of a man climbing a towering mountain with great determination. Carefully, he secured his gear into the rocks, advancing slowly on his journey. Everything seemed under control, and the environment showed no signs of immediate danger. However, at a crucial moment, when trying to secure himself on another rock, he couldn't fit his tool correctly. That was enough for him to lose his balance and begin plummeting from a terrifying height. In that moment, his life seemed to flash before his eyes. But in a reflexive and brave move, he managed to grab hold in time, stopping the fall and ensuring his survival. With his heart racing and relief written all over his face, he recovered from the fright. It was by a very narrow margin that this climb didn't end as yet another tragedy captured on video. In 2019, Shiyohara Tetsu, 47-year-old man, decided to climb Mount Fuji in Japan and livestream his entire journey. What initially seemed like a simple hike with some followers on his channel soon became a tragedy that caught the world's attention. Shiyohara, who was struggling to pass the bar exam and had also battled stage 4 cancer, was looking for something to change his life, and the idea of climbing the mountain in winter seemed like a form of personal challenge. The stream started normally, and Shiyohara showed his viewers the climb, the freezing weather, and the snowy landscapes. However, something stood out in his journey. He wasn't properly prepared. He lacked the necessary equipment and wore simple clothing, completely unsuitable for facing Mount Fuji's winter conditions. Despite his unpreparedness, he kept going, interacting with viewers and sharing the experience. Upon reaching the summit, he spent some time admiring the view and then began his descent. The descent would be the most dangerous part of the trip, since the ground was slippery and temperatures were below zero. Even so, Shiyohara kept going without the necessary caution, and the tragedy happened during the descent. He lost control and started sliding down a steep, icy area, picking up more and more speed until he disappeared from the camera's view. The final moment of his fall was captured live, but the stream soon cut off. Frightened viewers alerted the police. However, the rescue was complicated. Due to the time of day and the mountain conditions, rescue teams could only begin searching the next day. 2 days later, Shiyohara's body was found, but was unrecognizable, and identification was only possible through his belongings. After the accident, there was speculation about the reasons behind his decision and questions about Shiyohara's lack of responsibility, considering he ignored the mountain's risks and wasn't prepared for winter challenges. Moreover, many people commented on the strange ghost voice supposedly heard during the live stream before his fall. Reportedly, a female voice said "konai de," which means "don't come" or "go away," adding even more mystery and questions about the tragedy. In July of 2023, Grace Roloff, a 20-year-old college student from the state of California in the United States, was living a dream by climbing the iconic Half Dome located in Yosemite National Park in the United States. With her father, Jonathan, by her side, she had conquered the challenge of reaching the summit, a feat many adventurers hope to accomplish. For a lot of people, making it to the top of Half Dome is one of the most difficult and rewarding hikes in the United States. But while the summit represented a personal victory, the descent would be marked by a tragic accident. After successfully Successfully reaching the top, Grace and Jonathan began their descent on a trail already known for being difficult, with steep slopes and slippery rocks. However, the weather, which had seemed calm before, changed quickly. Rain fell during their descent, making the rocks and the famous cables that help hikers go down even more slippery and dangerous. In this section of the trail, climbers have to be extremely attentive and cautious, because the combination of unstable terrain and rain. As they descended carefully, Grace lost her balance on the wet cables and fell from a significant height. Her father, Jonathan, tried to reach her to help, but sadly, it was too late. He made a desperate call to emergency services, but rescue teams couldn't arrive in time. Grace did not survive her injuries. This tragedy wasn't an isolated incident. Half Dome is a popular trail among adventurers, but especially in bad weather. Its descent demands extreme caution. Grace's accident highlighted the importance of always checking weather conditions before embarking on a journey like this. This case also sparked discussions about safety on Yosemite's trails, with many people emphasizing the need for better monitoring, particularly in unstable weather. Safety measures, such as maintaining the cables in good condition and having experienced guides around, became crucial points for the community of mountaineers and tourists who visit the park. In 2019, the adventurer William Bowman had the scare of his life while rappelling at Salto São Francisco in Brazil. Standing 190 meters tall, the site is a big draw for thrill seekers, but what seemed like just another adventure for William turned into a serious warning about safety. He fell from a height of 30 meters and, despite all his experience and the necessary equipment, got hurt. He suffered a crack in his elbow and burns on his hands because one of his gloves tore during the descent. When the accident happened, William arrived at the spot a bit late and decided to rappel anyway, even though he had initially planned to try something else. After paying a fee of about $30 United States, he followed the instructor's guidance, which basically covered the difference in rope pressure between the first and second part of the descent. William already knew the trail, went forward without further safety warnings. During the descent, he encountered difficulties right from the start. The glove, which was too tight, ended up tearing, and the friction from the rope on his hands started causing burns. Because of that, he had to slow down, but the effort of holding the rope led to cramps in his arms. When he was about 30 meters from the ground, the brake mechanism was no longer enough, and he couldn't control his descent. He ended up falling on his back onto the rock. Luckily, he was carrying 3 water bottles in his backpack, which helped cushion the impact and kept the worst from happening. The problem was that at the site, there was no one to provide support. When William finally managed to climb back up, he found only a few young people messing with the ropes, and no one even realized what had happened. Soaking wet, in pain, and shaken, he still headed into town alone to look for medical help. It wasn't until 2020 that William decided to share the video of the accident on social media, and that's when the story went viral. Many industry professionals criticized the mistakes made during the process, such as the choice of equipment and the lack of proper safety measures at the site. He took the chance to warn people that before setting out on activities like this, it's crucial to verify the seriousness of the company, the quality of the equipment, and the qualifications of the instructors. William's accident is a reminder that even if you love extreme sports and have experience, safety should never be overlooked. Anyone who wants to do these activities should always make sure that the company provides insurance, good quality equipment, and professionals certified and registered by the Ministry of Tourism. Safety first. Just because it's an extreme sport doesn't mean you should be careless and forget the rules and safety procedures. Some mountaineers, in a way, end up being reborn. This adventurer, still without a lot of experience, was risking a climb when, unexpected move, he lost his balance and fell. To make matters worse, 3 of the safety pitons he had placed also came loose, since they weren't secured properly. The feeling of losing control was terrifying, and a fall seemed inevitable. However, by a stroke of luck, one of the pitons stayed in place, taking the impact and holding the climber. It was thanks to that single piece of gear that he got a chance to survive, because a fall from that height would almost certainly have been fatal. This is yet another video that serves as a powerful reminder of how important proper guidance and safety are in mountaineering. Being inexperienced without guidance or being overconfident can cost you your life. A Brazilian mountaineer went through a serious scare during a challenging climb on a 3,000-meter-high mountain in Argentina. During the ascent, he fell about 15 meters, suffering injuries to his legs and abdomen. The situation was quite serious, but fortunately, the rescue operation was very well coordinated. An Argentine army helicopter was called right away, and the fire department teams also stepped in, working together to make sure the mountaineer was rescued safely. He was quickly taken to the hospital, where he got medical care. Despite his injuries, he was not at risk of losing his life and was successfully stabilized in the hospital. In 2019, an expedition to the Himalayas ended in tragedy, with 8 mountaineers killed in an avalanche on Nanda Devi, the second highest mountain in India. Standing 7,816 meters tall, it's known to be even more challenging than Everest, thanks to its treacherous terrain and the frequent avalanches that strike the region. The group, made up of 4 British climbers, 2 Americans, 1 Indian, and 1 Australian, was part of an expedition led by the renowned British mountaineer Martin Moran. However, the decision to change the original route without notifying the authorities proved fatal. The tragedy took place on the 22nd of May, when the group, after reaching the second base camp, decided to climb a neighboring peak of 6,477 meters. Days later, heavy snowfall accompanied by large avalanches hit the area, and contact with the climbers was lost. Of the 12 members of the expedition, only 4, who had backed out before the route change, were rescued safely. Following the disappearance, a high-risk rescue operation was launched by Indian authorities. Air Force helicopters took off, with teams specialized in mountain interventions, including mountaineers from the Indo-Tibetan Border Police and paramilitaries. The efforts started at dawn, involving flights at altitudes up to about 6,100 meters, in a region where avalanches were constant. The aircraft's work was crucial in finding what remained of the climbers. Nanda Devi is famous among mountaineers worldwide, but it also has a reputation for being relentless. The area is dangerous and has strict climbing regulations. Any unauthorized deviation from the planned route is considered illegal. Back on Half Dome, another tragic story took place there. Standing more than 1,500 meters tall, with a breathtaking view, the hike around it can last about 10 hours. But what many people don't realize is that Half Dome is also a massive magnet for lightning. On the 27th of July of 1985, 5 friends decided to face the adventure. The day began with a calm, clear sky and a small cloud far in the distance. Nothing that seemed threatening. However, as they climbed, that cloud started to grow, and soon the weather turned into a heavy storm. Despite the bad weather, they decided to push on, driven by their desire to reach the summit. Around 1,800 hours, they finally got to the top, but what seemed like the highlight of their achievement quickly turned into a nightmare. During the storm, lightning struck the peak, sending millions of volts through the wet. The impact was devastating. 2 of the friends lost their lives, while 2 more were seriously injured with third-degree burns and internal injuries that took years to heal. Adrian Esteban, one of the group members, was luckier. Because he was moving around at that moment, he wasn't fully in contact with the rock, and that ended up saving his life. He got out with minor injuries, but with a lasting lesson he never forgets. Adrian started warning other adventurers about Half Dome's dangers. Even though it's an amazing place, it's necessary to respect the force of nature, which is just as impressive as it is unpredictable. During a climb on a snow-covered mountain, the weather was anything but calm. The climber, even giving a nervous little grin at one point, was clearly in trouble. The snow around him looked like it could give way at any second, and he was struggling to keep moving upward as his friends watched closely. Realizing things could go really bad at any moment, one of his companions threw him a rope. Without hesitating, he grabbed it and tied it around himself as fast as he could, and it wasn't for nothing. The moment he lifted his pitons to move on, the layer of snow he was standing on simply gave way, crashing down the slope.
His climb is falling.
Got you.
He narrowly avoided disaster. If he had taken a few more seconds to secure the rope, the outcome could have been different. It was a huge scare, but everything turned out all right. These 2 climbers decided to go further, and instead of climbing a mountain like everyone else, they got the brilliant idea to climb an iceberg. At first, everything seemed fine. They were going up slowly and carefully, heading toward the top, thinking everything was under control. But suddenly, the calm turned into a nightmare. The iceberg started tipping toward the 2 climbers, and it could have crushed them at any moment. Panic took over, and both were flung into the icy water as the massive block of ice kept moving their way. Luckily, they managed to get out of the path just in time to avoid a tragedy. The Mount Hakoda disaster, which happened on the 23rd of January of 1902, is still remembered as the deadliest incident in modern mountaineering history, with 199 deaths on a single expedition. The mission's purpose was to test the ability of Imperial Japanese Army soldiers to cross snowy mountains in extreme temperatures in preparation for possible conflicts with Russia during the Russo-Japanese War. The trek across the Hakoda Mountains from the city of Aomori to Toshiro Hot Spring was planned so the army could navigate the area if roads and railways were destroyed by bombings. The mission involved crossing the mountains in the midst of heavy snow and extremely severe winter conditions. A unit of 210 soldiers was chosen, but most of them came from regions without snow and had no experience in mountaineering or such intense winter conditions. They set out without local guides and without proper preparation. The goal was simple: a mountain crossing to reach a hot spring 20 kilometers away. However, the weather changed drastically. A violent snowstorm arrived, and temperatures plunged to negative 41 degrees Celsius, leaving the soldiers lost and suffering from extreme frostbite. In the following days, the troops lost contact with their destination, and the rescue effort only began on the 26th of January, when a group of 60 men was sent to look for those missing. Even with the efforts of tens of thousands of soldiers and civilians, 193 of the 210 soldiers froze to death, and 6 more died months later. Beyond being a massive tragedy, the disaster exposed the lack of preparation and planning for such extreme conditions. What should have been a simple mountain crossing became one of the worst military disasters in Japan's history. The event had a huge impact on the country, and it remains a lesson on how insufficient readiness and planning can lead to catastrophic outcomes. The disaster inspired a book and a film, both based on the facts, and also led to the creation of a museum in Aomori to preserve the memory of this tragedy. Don't forget to subscribe so you can watch more videos like this.